I know I don't make many videos about Teemo and League of Legends, but when I do, I genuinely want to explain everything in as much detail as possible while also keeping it as simple as possible, which just oftentimes is just not my style. So I know I have already made a video about aggressive Teemo jungle and rotations, so this video will focus on some of the updates explaining everything in his early game and proper understanding of clear, since I have had some people interested in playing jungle but really never understand it fully, where they focus too much on the wrong tasks, ultimately losing their lead and wasting a lot of their time. So let's go ahead and gauge your allies and also look at a couple of tricks. I very much enjoy denying enemy junglers while rotating many timers at once consistently, regardless of who they are currently playing, unless they are extremely difficult counters like Kha'Zix, Fiddlesticks, Shaco, and particularly Zac due to his passive. Regardless of which side of the map that we're starting on, I favor topside red because of the rotations being substantially better for invading on both sides, and the chances of them really defending it are much lower throughout the lower ranks up until about a high platinum, because so many players have become so accustomed to the continuous invades that occur on the bot side of the map that they really just turn a blind eye that the topside blue and topside red invades almost completely. So we notify our allies as soon as the game starts that we intend to invade topside if we are on the blue side. Using this information, we can then determine who on our team is actually paying attention or just AFK for the most part, and also who is more willing to help you achieve these goals. If nobody on your team rotates with you, that's unfortunate, but it does give you an idea of how aggressive or passive they are as players when it comes to team gameplay early on. Not everybody likes to take risks. You would also like to ping them to have them defend your red side as to avoid suspicion and also to not get counter invaded. But you normally can still invade all by yourself utilizing a very specific technique that doesn't always work, but it's very helpful to understand since you're utilizing the control of your character's movement and the enemy collision, which you collide with when you walk towards them even if you do not see them. Getting actual physical footage of this is quite difficult because it rarely ever happens, since nobody throughout Iron to Platinum really ever defends here, so we will be utilizing the invisible dummies. This is very handy in a variety of bushes anywhere on the map, but since we're focusing on this one behind the red buff, you're going to be observing a very tiny shift in your direction when you click on the champion that is currently hidden within the bushes. This forces you to go a bit to the left, and if you continue to click the place you want to go, but the control of your champion keeps going the other way, straight forward, you know there is somebody currently in that bush blocking your movement. However, if your character moves smoothly directly where you're clicking at, you know that there's nobody in the bush and you can safely face check. You want to face check these bushes because you need to ward for tracking purposes if you do intend to steal their red side and counter invade their rotations, putting them behind severely to the point where they're just foaming from the mouth when all you're doing is really taking their camps, not getting kills. Again, this is a very subtle indicator, but very helpful in those very rare cases. This can't actually work if you're playing Teemo and sitting in the bush because his invisibility actually allows the enemy champions to ghost through them. So it's more of a one-sided thing if they try to do it to you, because they can't. This is why if you're playing top or even mid, it's an excellent location to protect your red side if you don't want to go for a cheese strategy in your lane and you want to aid your allies in preventing this kind of strategy. Next we'll be talking about leashing, invading, and clearing. It's just strange because the longer we play League of Legends, whether it be for a month, a year, or in my case close to 11 years, the community becomes increasingly and unsettlingly more selfish. For example, just the other week I came across a player who insisted that leashing your junglers is no longer a necessary thing to do because it's the year 2024. If you're somebody who already plays jungle, then you would already know that this was just a very roundabout way of them publicly declaring to everybody on the team that that player was all about themselves as they sat in their tower doing nothing, not trying to set up a level 1 cheese, not preventing them from sneaking into your jungle, and just being a very lazy and unsportsmanlike player, and simply not understanding the many different reasonings of how important it can actually be for you to be there for 3 to 5 auto attacks. Sure, it's 2024 and we don't really need leashes in the jungle because of the sustainability, but depending on the type of player that you are in terms of rotational timers and the champion that you are playing, or the types of players you're up against, having that extra 3 to 5 seconds removed from your first camp clear could be absolutely huge and beneficial for a variety of reasons, such as being able to invade early, giving you enough time to rotate their entire jungle the preferred way, and not being caught up by minion waves that pass at 2 minutes and 18 seconds to 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Depending on the champion you're playing, obviously for this case we're going to be talking about Teemo, but somebody like Shaco or Kane really wouldn't have to worry about this as they can just go over the wall. Not that they really would have to, because their clear speed is just far superior even without a leash. And because the blast cone doesn't come up until around 9 minutes at this location, we don't really have that luxury without a leash. And if we wait until the minion wave passes, we're just wasting time. So everybody has a specific clear speed, and Teemo can pretty much match most every one of them. That's only if he gets a leash. Let's have a look at 4 samples of a leash and or non-leashed versions on both sides of the map so you can get a better understanding about it. We're going to be starting with the perfect side of the map, which is one of the greatest for players like myself who enjoy putting the enemy behind as quickly as possible for the entire game if possible. We acquire our usual leash but do not utilize a potion. You're going to need to save this as it will come in handy later as long as you do precisely what you should be doing, which is never tanking camps fully unless you're being leashed by a melee champion, while also pulling them around like so. Once red buff starts to get low enough, you're going to kite it towards Krugs when it reaches around 400 health, and when it reaches about 300 health, it's going to start resetting as you pass through the aggro range, allowing you to kill it as you round the corner. So just to pause here for a second and to talk about this, there are a lot of people who just don't understand the concept of kiting and fighting. If you're walking towards a location and you're fighting somebody while you're walking towards that location, you're doing two things at once. In this case, you're kiting red around, mitigating a lot of the damage, but you're also kiting it around so you make it so you can kite towards Krugs when it dies, which again is wasting absolutely no time instead of just standing still and taking a huge amount of damage. Now you move on to Krugs. It's the same deal. You're going to attack, kite, blind, take 3 blinded auto attacks until your next blind comes up at the edge of the reset line. Sometimes you can bug out the big Krug that gets stuck behind the smaller one, but you really don't need to do this unless you are currently invading on this side of the map. Just continue kiting because again, you're going to be wasting time if you're standing still. You will then move it back towards red once again, blinding as you pass by, mitigating damage, and by that point you've killed both without spending a single second roaming aimlessly or taking huge amounts of damage. You're always kiting and killing things quickly, which is very helpful in conserving your time and yourself while roaming through the jungle. Now heading on to Raptor, we're going to be striking 4 to 5 of the mini Raptors and then kite them around a little bit to mitigate some of their melee, while blinding the large ranged one and autoing it until it reaches about 600 HP, where we can smite it, and then follow up by killing the remaining Raptors while heading towards the enemy's blue side. So this is where that leash you could have and should have got comes in handy, because it shaved off 3 to 5 seconds. By the time you reach the blue pit, they will be 95% of the time on wolves now, or going to soon turn the corner of the blue bush in the next 5 to 8 seconds. However, certain players who are exclusively focused on ganking and killing may be seen mid or bot at this time. This gives you the knowledge that you need to kite the blue around and maybe take their entire blue side, or at the very least take their blue and gromp and then continue with your normal clear. Alternatively, if they are clearing wolves, then this provides you with plenty of time to lure blue near their river bush and then return to your in-range position to maintain it just within the reset range, allowing you to avoid resetting it while also hiding it from the enemy enough for you to get it low enough to kite it towards the river and smite it and then move on to the next location. Even if they do catch on, like in this case, by the time that they round the corner, your smite has just come back up once it's reached 700 HP. Notice how important all of that was. The timers, the smite, the kiting, the information of where they are based on basic understanding, but depending on the champion and their clear speed, leash, and non-leash, it becomes a very tight execution. You remember that potion that I told you not to use? Because you'll be tanking a lot of damage here and not kiting while you're currently almost at full HP, you're going to want to utilize that potion after you kill blue, and when you're about to fight them, when they move over to Gromp, after you let them tank a couple hits. If you ended up taking Ignite Smite like I do, you're going to be easily able to kill them, or at the very least burn their flash and take the rest of their jungle. Alternatively, you could do what I used to do before I started exploring better, if not gamble-styled strategies for myself, by waiting for them in that bush to smite blue when they are low on HP and then kill them. Although there are many different ways to play this, I find this to be the most fun and exciting way for my playstyle. By this time, depending on how actively aggressive your allies are in terms of topside and midside, you shouldn't really have much contest from topside or mid, as if they do come after you, your allies can most likely back up and support you, and by that time, the enemy is already going to be dead or long gone. After that, you do not want to waste any of your time, so you're going to go to Scuttle Crab and give a potential gank to mid as you rotate to contest the other Scuttle Crab and your blue side. So let's go ahead and talk about that for a second. So I want you to look at the minimap and process exactly what has just happened in the last 3 to 4 minutes. Utilizing this information no matter where they showed up on the map, if they were bot side, if they were mid when you were in their blue, or if they were turning around the corner, or even on blue and you maybe killed them or they got away. You have everything you need to know in a consistent time frame every single game to know exactly where the enemy should move next, because their whole jungle has literally been cleared and they only have a few options. Normally it's their Krugs, Scuttle Crab, and of course going into your jungle, for which they can get back at you for invading them, which is exactly what you're looking for, so you can starve them even more. This was all if you had obtained a leash from your topsider. If you didn't receive a leash, you can still accomplish this type of strategy, but you will have to wait a few extra seconds and then creep in from behind the blue pit with a ward and sneak into the bush, since most of the time they will be on top of it and not sitting directly in that bush. Now, you just wait for your smite to come up before stealing it and killing them. It's the same rotation, it's the same type of gameplay, you just need to modify it for for what you can and can't do due to the time constraints and the information that is currently being provided to you with the map. Now, there is a small chance that the enemy will be standing directly in the bush, basically just playing auto attack mode where they don't move, they don't kite, and they're taking an unnecessary amount of damage, while you simply can get in between them and the blue buff, allowing you to cut off one of their escape routes, allowing the blue buff to help you do damage, and making them flash over the wall into the blast cone, which you have already taken away from them. If you're understanding this a little bit more, you can see how much control you can actually acquire by making the right decisions while you're doing these types of playstyles. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the ideal invasion. It's the same thing as if you were on this side of the map, except you reverse the rotation, or you can do the same thing. It doesn't really matter so long as you smite the Raptor camp and get a leash before they show up at 2 minutes and 35 seconds to 2 minutes and 45 seconds. You'll be ready to fight them as a level 3 rather than be stuck at level 2. The same rotation is then repeated. Blue, scuttle, mid, contest, scuttle, red, wolves, gromp, gank, and then recall with the ward on grubs for information. Remember what we said, having a ward on Raptor Pit is essential information in figuring out if they're going to try to invade your blue side, potentially gank your topsider, or if they're going to invade your red side. Using all of this information, you will adjust and properly contest. If they go for red, you make your way through river. Because we have celerity and we have water walking, we can get there a lot quicker. If they're going towards our blue buff, same thing, but we catch them out in the bushes. And if they go for topside, we can simply wait in the pixel bush if we did see them waste a lot of time going through their raptors, red, and then up to their krugs. So if you've done everything perfectly and they do not appear mid, bot, or even in the bushes by 2 minutes and 35 seconds to 2 minutes and 45 seconds, you can be assured that they are taking your entire jungle and most likely rotating bot with a vertical bot rotation. Vision is extremely important, and once you're level 6 and onwards, this type of vision becomes much more common due to the fact that you can place your shrooms down. Where in contrast, being locked in a lane like topside, you have complete flexibility to roam wherever you want, whenever you want at high speeds, allowing for much better map coverage. This is probably a very good time to mention these are the only wards you should be placing during your early first clear, so you can get the control and the information that you desperately want. This would be the less than ideal option, but you have two options here. Ideally, you should try to avoid invading like this on your own, because a leashless invade is most certainly going to screw you over big time because you just can't accomplish anything here. You just can't go red raptor krugs, or you will be revealed by the minion wave, and if you decided to stand there and wait for the wave to pass, unless again you're playing a champion that can traverse walls, you'll be wasting all of that valuable time that could be used in rotating their counter invade once they catch on. And you can but can't do red krugs and then raptor because you need to smite krugs at that point to be able to make it over to kill raptor in time before they enter the bush at a level disadvantage. And if they do enter it while you are at a level disadvantage, they only need to steal a couple of the small raptors to force you to stay level 2 without being able to put a point into your W and having to fight them then and there. So it's best to just go for a standard bot side red pull with your support and ADC with the same rotation and forget about invading. Unless of course you feel like you can make it over there in time to catch them out on red, especially if they show mid or bot as you finish your jungle on this side. Here you're going to be doing a normal full clear, which is going to be your red, krug, raptors, wolves, blue, scuttle crab. You're going to contest gank topside, and then you're going to go to your gromp, you're going to go to your raptor, and then you're going to go to your krugs. In between going to your raptor and your krugs, you can definitely try to contest scuttle crab. Most likely you're not going to get it, but you're able to go for a final gank bot side before finally recalling at 6 minutes. No matter which one of these rotations you've done, you're always going to go back to base at around 6 minutes. So I don't recommend you do this on the blue side clear because the same strategy can and will most likely be used against you, and because they started on red side, on the opposite side of the map, more often than not, unless they're a mage like Karthus or Tilia, you just lack the sustain and burn damage to compete with them this early on. One more thing would be that you would never want to clear half of your jungle and then do the other jungle, because the EXP rates that you need to clear would be 4 camps to level up rather than just 3, which can severely screw you over. This basically summarizes your early game possibilities, and going into the mid to late game would require a much deeper understanding of mental tracking of your clear and rotational timers, similar to how we use our Smite Ignite and ward timers to achieve the same results practically every single game. These constantly shift and change, making you have to calculate where exactly you need to go and what you need to do to control your opponent more effectively. I'm sure there's going to be some players out there who say that this doesn't matter, but if you actually utilized all of this information that was just given to you in an actual game where you're playing something like mid, support, ADC, or even topside, all of this knowledge allows you to properly track the enemy jungler to the point where you don't even need to be scared if they're coming topside because you know exactly where they are and when you need to react at that precise moment. Take for example the APC Karthus that I had on my team. He wasn't playing jungle, yet he was actively tracking the enemy kindred alongside me, which was very helpful for himself but also helpful for me, and of course the rest of our team. Let's go ahead and talk about Rift Herald's multiple uses. The jungle has seen some big adjustments in the camps in terms of EXP, with Rift Herald receiving one fewer spawn but also a longer duration before being automatically spawned if you die with her or you forget to utilize her. What I believe most people overlook is her ability to be utilized not only as a siege weapon but an additional layer of protection. Take for instance if you find yourself alone on one side of the map ready to take some form of damage like a ultimate from Karthus, ultimate from Illaoi, or a champion like Rammus diving you out of the corner of your eye, and the Rift Herald is nearby. All you have to do is click on her to channel immediately inside of her, activating invulnerability. Now you can do this even if you are currently locked down to wait out that ultimate, get away from somebody, and to potentially add an extra layer of teamfight presence due to the knockup that she applies. Think about it, you have a Yasuo on your team or other champions that can get in position to clean up house. If you just used it, it can be utilized the second the tower she is attacking falls, but she can be easily killed here because she has less HP, and if she dies she will just kinda drop you off immediately, so do be cautious. You can see how little but useful an objective like Rift Herald may be for you as a solo split pusher or in general. It's not merely for just destroying towers. Of course, there's always people asking what the current builds are, so we have been trying many old and new builds to see which is the best option currently. There are various different build routes based on the enemy composition, based on being ahead, being behind, trying to improve your 1v1 duels while rotating the opposing jungle on a constant basis. So I'll go ahead and say that you can play whatever rune you want, you can play whatever items you want, you can do whatever you feel like you want to do as a player, but playing on hit and playing AD have been pretty much useless for quite some time, especially in the recent patches and the last couple of seasons, because on hit AP and AP burn give considerably superior consistency owing to the modifications to items, specific runes, defenses, and various build paths for a number of situations. I don't even recommend Kraken Slayer anymore. As much as I hate to admit it, there's just no reason to reduce your overall scaling output by building all of these items that are doing absolutely nothing but putting you behind more and also lowering your chances of winning your games. So I do hope that this helps you pick up Teemo in the jungle or just improve your knowledge on other junglers, especially if you're like the majority of us right now that are just very frustrated by how little damage we are dealing to top laners due to the rune and item changes and of course the mage meta. This isn't a foolproof guide. You will always have to adapt by yourself and process a lot of the information that is currently being presented to you, but honestly, just try to give this type of playstyle a try. It's enjoyable, very fun, and if you get the hang of it, it can definitely help you improve your comprehension of the game significantly. While I do mostly play for fun these days and against a wide range of players in terms of their ranks and of course in normals, you should try it for yourself to see what I'm talking about. If you do intend to climb with it to a high rank, do keep in mind that it does begin to fall off slightly into high emerald.